I used to think a home had to have windows. Now, I'm not so sure anymore. We moved into the underground parking lot on a Tuesday. I remember because my son kept asking why he didn't have to go to school. I told him it was just for a few days, like a strange kind of vacation. He believed me. At that time, I still believed it too. We packed quickly blankets, a few bottles of water, canned food, an old radio that barely worked. My wife insisted on bringing it. "We need to know what's happening," she said. I didn't argue. The parking lots were cold when we first arrived. It smelled like oil, dust, and something damp that never quite went away. The lights flickered overhead, casting shadows that made everything look uncertain, like nothing was fully real. We chose a corner near a concrete pillar. It felt safer somehow, like having something solid behind us could protect us from whatever was happening above. My daughter complained first. "Why are we sleeping here?" she asked, hugging her backpack like it was the only normal thing left. "Just for a few nights," I said. "Until it's safe again," she nodded, but I could tell she didn't fully understand. None of us did. The first night, none of us slept. Every sound felt louder underground. The distant rumble from above traveled through the concrete like a warning. Sometimes it was just a truck passing by, sometimes it wasn't. The first explosion came after midnight. The crowd trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling in fire. Silent lights. My son woke up crying. My daughter grabbed my arm so tightly it hurt. "It's okay," I said quickly, even before I knew if it was true. "It's far away." It wasn't that far, but it wasn't directly above us either. That was enough for that night. We tried to keep some kind of routine. In the morning, if it was quiet, I would go upstairs to check the situation. I never stayed long. The street looked different every time I came back. Fewer people, more broken glass, more silence. I brought back whatever I could find: bread, bottled water, sometimes nothing at all. We rationed everything. One bottle of water per day. One bottle of water per day for all of us. Small sips, no wasting. My wife was strict about it. Drink slowly. She would remind the kids. Pretend is enough. Pretend. That word started to mean everything. By the third day, my son began to change. At first, he was scared of the darkness. He didn't like the echo of his own footsteps or the way shadows moved when the lights flickered. But the children adapt faster than adults. He started playing with the painted lights on the ground. "That's my room," he said one afternoon, standing inside a faded parking space. "And this your room." He drew invisible words with his hands, laughing softly. I watched him, not sure if I should feel relieved or afraid. "Can we stay here?" he asked later. "It's kind of fun." My wife turned away when he said that. She was trying to stay strong. She organized our supplies, folded blankets, kept track of how much food we had left. She spoke calmly, moved carefully, as if any sudden action might break something fragile between us. But at night, when the children were asleep, I could hear her breathing change. She didn't cry, not loudly. But sometimes I could feel her hand searching for mine in the dark, gripping it tightly, like it was holding on to something slipping away. Sleep became harder for me. Every small vibration woke me up. Every distant noise felt like it could be the one that ended up everything. My body never relaxed. My mind kept running, imagining the worst possibilities again and again. What if the building collapsed? What if the entrance were blocked? What if we couldn't go? What if we couldn't get out? I started counting seconds between sounds, trying to measure distance, trying to predict danger. It didn't help. It only made me more aware of how little control I had. After a week, I stopped trying to sleep deeply. I just rested with my eyes closed. Waiting. The radio works sometimes. We had to adjust the antenna constantly, turning it slowly until our voice came through the static. The news was never good. More attacks, more areas destroyed, more warnings. Stay indoors, the voice would say. We were already further indoors than anyone else. Food became a problem faster than I expected. The small shops nearby were either closed or empty. The first time I saw a store completely destroyed, I stood there longer than I should have, staring at the broken shelves and scattered items. It felt like looking at something that used to be normal. I found new cans under a fallen display. I took them quickly, checking the street every few seconds. The silence outside was worse than noise. It felt like something was always about to happen. When I got back, my wife didn't ask where I found them. She just nodded and said, "Good." The day everything changed started too quietly. There were no distant sounds, no vibrations. Even the air felt still, like the world was holding its breath. "I'll go up," I said. My wife hesitated. "Be careful." I always were. But that day felt different. The streets were unrecognizable. Buildings I had walked past just days ago were gone, not damaged, gone. Reduced to piles of concrete and twisted metal. Cars were overturned, windows shattered, doors hanging open. There were no voices, no movement. I walked slowly, trying to understand what I was seeing. The shop where I used to buy bread was no longer there. In its place was a crater, dark and uneven. I stood at the edge, looking down, unable to process it. This couldn't be the same place, but it was. I didn't stay long. I grabbed what little I could find, half a bag of rice, a few bottles of water from broken crate, and ran back. As I reached the entrance of the parking lot, I heard it. A distant, rising sound. I didn't think. I just ran faster. "Get down!" I shouted as I raced in. My family looked up, confused for a split second. Then they saw my face. We pressed ourselves against the ground, covering our heads. The explosion came seconds later. This one was closer, much closer. The entire structure shook violently. The lights went out for a moment, plunging us into darkness that filled the air, making it hard to breathe. My son screamed. My daughter didn't make a sound. I felt the ground move beneath me in a way I had never felt before. Not just a vibration, but a shift. For a moment, I thought the ceiling would collapse, but it didn't. When the shaking stopped, everything was quiet again. Too quiet. Is everyone okay? I asked, my voice barely steady. Yes, my wife said quickly. We're okay. The children nodded, still frozen. I looked towards the entrance. Part of it had collapsed, not completely, but enough to make living harder, enough to make us really realize something we hadn't fully faced before. We might not be able to live when we wanted to. That night, no one pretended anymore. We didn't talk about going home. We didn't talk about just a few more days. Something had changed, not outside, inside it. The next morning, my son didn't ask to play. He sat quietly, tracing the same line on the ground with his finger over and over again. Is it still our home? He asked suddenly. I didn't know how to answer. Yes, I said after a long pause. It was the only answer I had. Days passed, or maybe weeks. Time stopped feeling real. We lived between moments, between silence and noise, between fear and waiting. We ate less, we spoke less, we moved less. Everything became smaller. I was running to a single corner of a parking lot. One evening, my daughter asked a question that stayed with me. What, we can go back to normal? When can we go back to normal? I opened my mouth to answer. Then I closed it again. I didn't know what normal meant anymore. The radio stopped working after that. No more voices, no more updates, just silence. At first, it felt like we had lost something important. Then slowly, I realized something else. We weren't waiting for news anymore. We were just surviving. My son stopped asking about school. My daughter stopped asking about her friends. My wife stopped checking the supplies every hour. And I stopped looking at the entrance. One night, as we lay on the cold concrete, my son whispered, I like it here. No one replied. I stared at the ceiling, barely visible in the dim light. I tried to remember what our home looked like. The windows, the kitchen, the sound of normal life. But the memories feel distant, like something from another life. Down here, there were no windows, no sunlight, no future plans, only the next hour, the next sound, the next sound, the next breath. Somewhere along the way, something changed completely. We didn't notice it happening. There was no single moment, no clear light. But one day, I realized the truth. We were no longer living. We were only trying to stay alive. And somehow, that had become enough.